Welcome to the Omen Comics Podcast, where we talk about everything from writing comics to the philosophies held within them. My name is Michael Nunneley, the creator of the Omenverse, and with me, as always, is my friend Steve Sellers, the creator of the Blitzverse. So, today we're going to talk about love, since it's February, but not just romantic love. We also want to talk about familial love and how that plays a part in Omen Comics characters. So, Steve, what is your favorite romance comics?
I'm always been a huge fan of Nightwing, Dick Grayson, and Barbara Gordon as Oracle. I like them as Nightwing and Batgirl too, but I feel like the time period they kind of spent pre-Flashpoint, especially written by Chuck Dixon and Gail Simone, was really, really well done. Because it kind of showed how they started off as crime fighters, very different. They really didn't get along that much at all. And then gradually over time, they kind of split apart and then they came back together and they were close friends. And I like the gradual development, as like partners to friends to best friends, and finally, into a couple. And they kind of got an ending in a way when Gail wrote the Convergence two-parter, I believe, where they finally, got married and all of that, even if it wasn't quite the same thing. But it was really kind of the development of that. And one moment that really kind of stands out in their relationship is a crossover between Nightwing and Birds of Prey called The Hunt for Oracle, where Nightwing was captured by Blockbuster, who wanted to find out who Oracle was.
Uh-oh.
And the reason that he had wanted to do this was because Barbara had been rifling through his bank account, stealing money for like operations that she wanted to do. I mean, she had to steal money from criminals to like pay ransom for Dinah at one point, things like that. And she was robbing straight out from Blockbuster, which which at the time was, really enjoyable. No, especially not back then. Back then he was pretty much like a Kingpin with not quite Superman level strength. Superman beat him when they fought, but strong enough to give like all the bad people headaches.
Right.
So this is the person that Nightwing pissed off, and it was not good. So he ended up being tortured because Blockbuster wanted the name. And, for the most part, he really wouldn't give it up. They really had to go to some really extreme measures over a very long time to get any information to work with. But he was able to do that, because he loved her. He didn't want to put her in danger. And then even after he got free, he really did, as much as he was able to stop Blockbuster from getting to her. It turned out that, it was ultimately resolved because he didn't know what Oracle looked like. So he kidnapped Black Canary instead, but that's a whole nother story.
Right.
But overall, it was that slow burn, that slow development over time and the way the relationship changed over time that to me made it really natural and organic.
I think that fits into part of why Nightwing was able to resist Blockbuster for so long.
Yeah.
That they'd known each other their entire lives since they were children.
Right.
It's a little bit more than, say, if you've been dating somebody for a while and you're in love with them, when it goes back into roots that deep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there really hasn't been very long of a time when they didn't know each other. So, I mean, it is, especially particularly like during their superhero career. I mean, Dick Grayson was, not, there that long. He was still in short pants, and she had just started in Batgirl Year One, which is kind of mainly what I'm referencing.
Right. Yeah, that was that's powerful love right there. But I think I might have you beat on a powerful love level there.
Go for it.
Well, my favorite romance in comics has got to be Carter Hall and Shaira Saunders.
A classic.
Yes. I wrote this little bit here for it. I was thinking I wanted like drama, like the opening of a movie or something type of deal. A love so powerful, it's reincarnated over and over. A destiny so strong that not even death could separate them. I that really encapsulates the whole thing, you know.
Yeah, and if you look at like the recent Hawkman series by Robert Venditti, he goes it one step further with all of the revelations about where Carter really came from and where Shiera really came from. And, you know, in fact, their first lives, Carter was named Qatar, and he was one of the Deathbringers, which was a race of people that were pretty much does exactly what what that implies. Like they were wiping out entire people.
Yes.
They were wiping out entire species and things like this. And it was their love that caused Qatar to change. You know, I don't want to be a Deathbringer anymore, and that's when he was, and after that he was killed. But the whole idea is I want to redeem myself because I want to be worthy of her love.
Right.
And that makes it really, really powerful. So it's not only that, they've been reincarnated throughout human history, they've been reincarnated throughout time and space. He was around for the death of Krypton. He was for things like that. They were around at that time. So yeah, it's a love that spans time and space. That is it's very epic and very romantic, I think.
A love even powerful at the point of death. There in Green Lantern, I believe it was number 46. The Zamarons actually take the corpses of Carter and Shiera and take him in and put him in the Violet Central Power Battery.
Yeah.
Because even in their dead bodies, their love is so strong it can power an entire core.
Yeah. I believe that, especially when you do consider how far it goes back. How strong that love has only grown over that time.
Right. There's a lot of reincarnation stories where people will grow on and have little tiny connections or whatever, maybe to their past lives. But to have a love so strong that it just keeps repeating throughout time.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Yes. I mean, Hawkman is basically the eternal champion of the DCU, and I've always liked that about him.
Right. I love me some Hawkman. Hawkman is badass. You know what? My favorite depiction actually of Hawk Girl is in the Justice League series.
That's really good.
Animated series. She was just such a badass on that. She was all ready to scrap with anyone.
I always liked her with Jon Stewart in that show.
Yes.
Even if it's weird that she's not with Hawkman, I like that dynamic.
I do too. So, but romantic love is not all we're going to talk about today. I wanted to talk, of course, about Omen comics and some of our characters, and really, there's not, at least as of yet, any romantic love in Omen comics. There's basically too much going on in our characters' lives to have time for a relationship of any sort.
Yeah, I think we will tease a little bit in one of the things that I've got coming up, but I think it's a little too soon to get into that.
All right. Sounds intriguing. So really, familial love is what I want to talk about. What would you say? How does familial love enter into the Omen comics characters you write?
Okay, I think this shows particularly with Lou and Michael Nero, because even though they're not necessarily family by blood in any way, the fact that they're master and apprentice, the fact that they've known each other a while by the time that we start, and what they've done for each other, I think they've kind of grown into like a father-son relationship in a lot of ways.
Totally, I can see that.
Yeah, and I think we definitely see that when Nero doesn't treat Lou like he treats everyone else. Nero is very often an arrogant, sometimes a bit of a jerk to most people.
I I'd say a little more than a bit, but okay.
Yeah. well, I mean, he does have his redeeming features, and I think one of them is the fact that he does respect Lou. He's one of those people that I think is partly because Lou is actually kind of smart enough to keep up with him. But it's also that he recognizes what Lou has done for him, and the fact that Lou was the one person who believed him about the third sight when everybody else has basically said, "You're insane."
Right.
And I think he respects that at least one person's like, okay, somebody gets it. Somebody understands who I am. Maybe I should listen to what this guy says, because maybe, if he's smart enough to understand that, then he's seeing things that most people don't see.
Right.
So that kind of lends it, and also Lou saved his life.
Right. I noticed in reading White Druid of Michael Nero #2, I really appreciated how there's the moment where the detectives, when they're in the morgue there, and the detectives are starting to get kind of on Lou. He's being a little vague in what he's saying, and they're like, "Dude, so is this what's going on or what?" And Nero basically steps up and he's like, "Dude, back off. Give him a minute." I really liked that. I love that Nero was protecting him like that.
Yeah, and he would, because he feels a very strong sense of obligation. I mean, not just because of the master-apprentice relationship, but the fact that he saved his life, and just the fact that, he's his closest friend, really. Some might say only friend, but certainly closest friend. And so they're, even though Nero can be an absolute jerk, he does respect those things. There are things that he will give back to. And that's definitely one major example of that.
Right, and I do love how in that scene there in the morgue there, how they kind of played off each other. While Nero steps up and back off, you let him, give him a minute, kind of a thing. Almost the first thing out of Lou's mouth was, "You'll have to excuse my apprentice. He's," you know what I mean? Like he's trying to. I know he comes off a little harsh, but his intentions are good, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and he does know this. Lou, I think, is one of those people, because he is kind of I would say, because he's a teacher. I mean, because of his status as White Druid, teaching is very much part of what he is. Right. And part of being a teacher like him is the ability to see the potential in people. And I think he sees a potential in Nero that most people can't, because all they see is this blunt, aloof, douchebag, basically.
Right.
And, but Lou sees that he's potentially capable of doing good. He sees, the abilities that he has and how it could be harnessed, for good, if Michael would kind of get over his own ego.
Right. Right. I personally appreciate that relationship based on, like, for instance, I'm not all that great at interacting socially. Yeah. I seem to do okay at, like, signings and stuff, but as a general rule, I don't really get social etiquette. And so I really appreciate, like, in my head, I'm kind of like Nero in that fashion, that I appreciate those that are willing to look through the kind of jagged edges and see what's inside there.
Yeah, I think for me, I have a little bit of both. I have a blunt side, which I think comes off in Nero, and I also have a more diplomatic side, which is more Lou. So it's like, in a way, it is a bit schizophrenic, working with those.
And sounds like the perfect title, actually, for you to write.
Yeah. It turned out to be. You were right about that.
Right on. I think the one I'm going to talk about today is Frank Wade, or Omen.
Interesting.
Yes, his other than his sense of duty, his only real connection to family at all is through his sister Jamie and her son. And without giving too much away in the story there, most of Frank's family is either not speaking with him or are dead. And because of the thing Frank has done in the line of duty, because of the decisions he's had to make, he is a bit disconnected from. It's not quite Patrick O'Leary, like where he's disconnected from humanity as a whole.
Well, O'Leary's more of a sociopath than I think Frank is.
Right, right. But his sister Jamie is really the one connection he has with that kind of love and support beyond like the men and women in his unit, the people that Frank is served with. She's kind of the anchor that allows him to go around and do the stuff that he does.
Mm-hmm.
I particularly like I don't want to give too much away here. I like the fact that as you see in Omen number 2, Jamie and Frank's relationship is close enough that the very reason Frank is now Omen is in part because of his sister. As we saw, she made a deal with Bulbous Jojobo, Papa. I lost his name now all of a sudden. Papa Legba.
Yeah, I can't remember everything.
Okay. Legba, yeah. That they don't just have a connection as far as being their only source of family and having that anchor too, but even their destinies are intertwined with each other
in ways that they really can't really ever imagine.
Right.
Which I find that quite interesting. There is that love there. It seems like she is sort of like the person who sort of keeps him a little bit more sane and more connected to humanity. But there are all kinds of things he's doing that she can't understand either. Because most people really can't. Unless they've kind of dealt with the military a lot. They can see what kind of suffering that you see in wars, especially the kinds of crazy stuff that Frank was dealing with.
Right.
So,
I think we saw a hint of this in Gallows Men, where we were talking a bit about Patrick's past.
Right.
Where we see that his face got cut up due to Raven X being involved in that situation.
Yeah.
A little inside tip there. Frank was part of that unit, Raven X.
Yes, I remember.
Yes, as you know there. So this actually took place timeline wise, almost just before Frank went on the mission where he died.
Wow, what a timing!
Right. But I mean, imagine the kind of disconnect you gotta have in order to carve somebody's face up like that. It made it all that much more important as far as my writing Jamie's relationship with him, that she be this anchor, even if she's not all that solid herself. I mean, she went to Papa Legba for help. She's clearly maybe a little naive.
Well, I would say, yeah. I mean, definitely, if you're dealing with beings like that, and you don't really necessarily thinking of what the consequences are, it's just basically, well, I love my brother, bring him back.
Right. I wanted to show kind of the different sides of that, both what it was like being in the military, and Jamie was kind of a part of what it was like to be the family on the other end. While they're
and it also reminds him what he's fighting for. I mean, he's not necessarily fighting for himself. He's always usually been fighting for other people, like his unit or his country. But he's also fighting, to make sure that she's not hurt.
Right. It's kind of like there is this greater purpose, but really, I want this greater purpose to succeed so that my sister survives, kind of a deal.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much our love episode there. Do you have anything else you wanna add?
Not a whole lot. I mean, this is what passes for love in Omen comics. I'm hoping that we can eventually like bring in a little bit more romance when, they're not like, dealing with the blood moon and all these crazy things, but we'll see how that goes. Definitely, I would say like more of the focus is on the family love, in all of our books. Even Patrick O'Leary really loves his parents, as crazy as that guy gets.
Right.
But this is part of the fun too. You never kind of, you know, expect necessarily, what's coming up on the pike, or, what they're going to have to react to and how these characters are going to have to deal with things.
Very true. Very true. Maybe after this coming apocalypse is over,
Yeah.
we'll have time for a little bit more romance in Omen comics.
Love in the Apocalypse. 9-part epic by Omen Comics.
That sounds pretty good, actually. I have to check that out. All right. Well, thanks for joining me as always. I appreciate you having here. And live long and prosper, man.
Peace and long life.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Omen Comics podcast. This has been Steve Sellers and Michael Nunneley here with Omen Comics. And we encourage you to look into all our Omenverse titles, wherever they might be sold, including Comixology, Amazon, Draw Me and Comics, and elsewhere. If you like our content, please like, subscribe, hit the magic bell for notifications. And until next time, we'll see you in the Omenverse.